There are countless lists of things for you to do here in Bali. But in today's video, I want to go over 21 things that you should not do while you're here. Hopefully this will help you to have the safest and most enjoyable trip possible. Now, starting off with number one, I want to talk about not trusting people on Facebook. I've mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but I was actually scammed out of $3,000 by getting my KUTA through a fake visa agent. So make sure that anybody that you're talking to or communicating to online that's going to result in you paying something is a contact that you get from somebody that you really trust. The second thing that you should not do while here in Bali is carry around large amounts of cash in your pocket at one time. Not only is this bad if someone is to come and try and steal something from you, but also a lot of the times the police here can pull people over for things like your helmet, and the price of your ticket is determined on how much you have in your pockets. If you do have to take around large amounts of cash with you, maybe keep 200 or 300K in one pocket and then put the rest of the cash in some place hidden in your backpack so you can tell them that this is what they have and they don't try and rip you off. Now, another thing to keep in mind when you're making your way around town is to not hold your phone out nearby streets. There's a lot of people here that drive by and they're on scooters with two people, and the person in the back will be trying to go around and grabbing phones from people that are looking at their phone on the side of the street or looking for directions on the back of somebody's bike. So just do not hold your phone out while you're near the street because you will risk it getting stolen. Now, speaking of phones, there is an import tax here for bringing in a phone into the country. If you're staying more than 30 days, you need to pay tax on your phone. Do not come into the country without paying this tax and thinking that you can get around it, because they will shut your phone off from the internet here, which sucks, and you'll end up having to pay a lot more if you don't pay it on your initial visit. So make sure as soon as you come in, if you're planning to stay for more than 30 days, just pay the tax. Taxis. Do not take taxis here in Bali. Taxis here are usually a scam. If you're ever getting a ride here, use a ride sharing app. Rides here should be very inexpensive. They're not like North American prices. And when I've taken taxis, they've always tried to charge me 3 or 4 times the going rate for the ride that I'm taking. Another thing never to do here is to drink the tap water. You always have to use these big jugs of water if you're gonna drink something. Drink it from here or drink it from a bottle, but try to avoid plastic bottles because that's not cool. Bad for the environment. After that hand transition, I spilled water all over myself. So, now that I'm covered in water for this shot, the 7th thing not to do here in Bali is to stay in KUTA. Now, so many people, when they're looking for a place to stay here in Bali, will look it up on Airbnb, they'll see some nice villa and they'll book it, and they won't look into what area that villa is really in. And the areas here in Bali make such a big difference. If you guys want to see a full video about the best and the worst areas here in Bali, let me know. But I will say, do not stay in KUTA. KUTA is known to be a dirty city. It's filled with a lot of drugs and prostitution and crime, and I just highly recommend do not go stay there. It's not the beautiful rice terrace village that you're going to expect. It's a dirtier looking city. There's many places in Bali that are so much more beautiful than KUTA, so please, whatever you do not come here and stay in KUTA. Okay, number 8, do not take things that people say are free. This is a really common thing, and it's not exclusive to Bali, Indonesia, but you will see it here sometimes. In touristy vendors that are selling little souvenirs, you'll often get into a conversation with them. They'll act very nice and very kind, which they are, but it is a clever way to get you to pay for something even when they say it's free. You'll end up getting on a good remark with them. They'll ask you where you're from, they'll talk about your country, and they'll say, you know what, for you this is free. And you'll grab it and you'll start to walk away, and then they'll ask for money. They'll make it very uncomfortable and awkward for you to refuse it. So just be very careful that whenever you pick up an item or somebody hands it to you and says it's free, nothing's free. We all know that. Speaking of snakes, number 9, do not go buy snakes with white and black stripes. There's a lot of snakes here in Indonesia and most of them aren't too bad, but I've been told that the ones with white and black stripes are the ones you really want to look out for. Those will kill you, so watch out for those. Now, water is one thing, but if you're going to be drinking things other than water here in Indonesia, be careful of local liquor. It can be really fun to experience the local culture and drink what they would drink, such as drinks like arak or palm wine, but do be careful of how much you do consume because these aren't regulated. There's no listed percentage, and the ethanol content can be quite high, which can cause things like blindness. So make sure if you are indulging in the local liquor that you do keep it moderate and you don't drink too much, just for safety's sake. Now, speaking of drinking, please, when you're here, do not drink and drive. The biggest killer of tourists here is drinking and driving, because driving on a scooter is a totally new experience for people, and then you add alcohol into the mixture and it's not a good combination. So please do not drink and drive. Now, while we're on the topic of things that people do in KUTA, don't do drugs here. And most importantly, do not bring them here. Please. They still have the death penalty here for drug trafficking and drug use, so just don't do it. There are plenty of other things to get high on here, like volcanoes or life in general. Life is great. Don't do drugs. Now, the next thing not to do in Bali is step on one of these guys. These are offerings that the locals put out every morning, and they're kind of all over the place, usually on the roads and on pathways, so do not step on these. They're really culturally important, and it's a big insult to local culture and tradition if you do step on them, so just keep an eye on your feet, don't go on your phone too much, and don't step on these little guys. Now, the next thing not to do in Bali is trust ATMs. There's a lot of ATMs here that are bugged and they'll steal your credit card information, which is no bueno. So the best way to get around this is to go to the ATMs that you see locals going to. The locals know the ones that are trustworthy, so just follow the local people. If you don't see local people at an ATM, probably don't go to it. Just keep looking. The 15th thing not... 15th? Okay, so the 15th thing not to do here in Bali is go to TEGALALANG Rice Terrace. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it's the most touristy place here in Bali. It's a rice terrace in Ubud, and it is so overrated. There's so many more beautiful rice terraces here that aren't completely overrun by hundreds or thousands of tourists here during peak time. My #1 rice terrace to go to is called JATILUWIH. It is so much bigger, so much more beautiful for sunrise and sunset, and there's hardly any other people there. So definitely avoid the crowds, go to the nicer spot, and skip out on Tegalalang. Now, speaking of touristy things to do, probably the second most touristy thing here to do in Bali is to go to NUSA PENIDA and visit CANANG beach. Now, I do highly recommend you do this. It is a beautiful spot, but what I don't recommend you do is you sign up for one of the day trip packages. There's so many people that sell a day trip package where basically you wake up early, you take a morning speedboat to the island, you check out CANANG beach, and then you head back at around 5 p.m. That's great, but there's also thousands of other people doing the exact same thing as you. So what you want to do is you want to go and you want to stay the night on NUSA PENIDA. And it can just be for one night. But since everybody else is leaving at around 5 p.m., you'll get the sunset basically all to yourself at the beach, which is so worth it because the sunset there is crazy. Not only that, but the next morning you can go to my second favorite spot on the island called Diamond Beach, and the sunrise there is possibly even crazier. So I recommend you do not go for a day, you go for 2. Now, the next thing not to do here in Bali, Indonesia, is to not walk around shirtless. When you're in somebody else's country, it's important to respect their culture, and culturally here, you should remain fairly covered. So walking around in a bikini top, or if you're a dude walking around with your guns out, which I swear I'm not jealous. It's just disrespectful. So try and keep that to the beach and the beach only. If you're taking your scooter back home, if you're walking around trying to find shops, just put a shirt on, just to stay respectful to the local culture. Another thing to avoid when you go down to the beach is leaving your helmet on your bike. It's really tempting and you'll see lots of other people doing it, but leaving your helmet on your bike opens you up to the possibility of people taking your helmet, and if you've gotten your helmet from a rental bike place, they'll charge you way too much for what that helmet's worth. And if it's your own helmet, then chances are you got a really nice one and you probably paid a lot for it anyways, so you don't want it getting stolen. So just try and take your helmet with you. Unless there's a security guard right beside where you parked your bike, I'd recommend just taking it with you. It's worth it not to go through the hassle of getting another helmet or replacing one that you rented. Last but not least, I highly recommend avoiding using cash at all costs here. Cash requires you to go to ATMs, which can scam you with your credit card, and also if you have an international credit card, chances are you're going to be paying around $5 per transaction at an ATM here, and the ATMs don't let you take out much money at one time. So I highly recommend avoiding cash at all costs. Now, to avoid doing so, I recommend using apps like TransferWise. If you guys want your first transfer free, I've got a link in the description if you guys want to use that. But if you guys want to see a video about all my favorite apps here in Bali and the ones I recommend you use, click this video here. It's an in-depth video about each app that I use and why I use it. But for now, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it helped you out. If it did, smash like, subscribe, Instagram, those things. Anyways, peace.